wrestling and everything coast to coast with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, effervescent Evan Ginsberg, and wrestling's premier photographer, Dr. Mike Lano. So, before you can get anything in edgewise, I am going to talk about the fact that I performed for Wrestling for Charity in front of 1,000 people or more in Santa Rosa, in the middle of downtown Santa Rosa. And I managed 3 great matches. And it was absolutely a huge, wonderful lucha / wrestling event that our friend Robert Butch Haw put on. And the reason why I'm bringing it up first is that we had 2 very impressive people on the show. One is our friend Ellie D, the lady wrestler who, we've covered her saga and how she came back from her car accident. Well, she was there wrestling in the ring with Ava Brooks, who is the AIWF champion, and she flew out to have her first match here in Northern California. And she was a hit. She was fantastic. I was so impressed with her. And I hope this gets back to her, that everyone at Wrestling for Charity just loved her to death. And we are really hoping to have her on future shows and book her. And I'm telling you, put that name down, Ava Brooks. She is actually going to wind up being a star. Or actually, whatever, ring name she winds up going with. But right now, she's Ava Brooks, and I think she's going to be a huge star in the future, on the level of like Sarah Del Rey or Bailey. And having met both of them and worked with both of them, I think I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so
what was the other match, Russ?
I managed Boyce LeGrand in 2 matches. One of them was against the Chicano Flame, who's been on this show. And I also managed J.D. Bishop's son, Bishop, and he fought in a preliminary match. So I'm going to try to get Big Ugly on the show and his son.
Wrestler and promoter. He had a long-time APW tag team with Vinny Massaro and others. He was always a capable guy in the ring, and then he was running for years and years. I don't know if he still runs it with or without.
Yes, he does. Capital. Yes, he does.
It's Sacramento Pro up there, big wrestling company.
Yeah, and he also has a training school, and his older son is a big deal now in Japan in Ring of Honor. And his other son, Bishop, the guy that I managed, is his final one.
Is one of his kids in AEW Ring of Honor? That one, Bishop?
Bishop's his youngest son.
Okay.
And he's not in any big feds yet. He's still just getting trained. He just turned 18, I think. So he's just
they have a Bishop that's in Gates of Agony, and one of them came from APW as well. So
that's him. That's the one that's his oldest son, Tito.
And those are powerful guys. They were in a huge match, the main event. They've been doing very well. Obviously, Will Hobbs from APW. We have some representation, and we had Chris Daniels when he was in his 2nd year of wrestling. He came up and he repeatedly would drive up with Suicide Kid and wrestle as a tag team.
Another individual that I manage, Christopher Daniels. So, this is my serious name dropping moment. You get to name drop every week, and Evan gets to name drop every week, but that's my chance.
We love our Northern California brothers and sisters. Didn't we lose somebody, Russ? We lost somebody recently.
Yeah, Dana Lee. That was last week's show. We talked
wasn't his nickname Primetime Dana Lee?
Yeah, and he worked with Bukake Bruce for a while.
He is the Asian American referee for all of these years, at least 10, 11, 12 years for WWE. He's on SmackDown.
And I think he's done a bunch of next stuff too. I think he's done a bunch of next matches as well. So,
so my time is a little limited. Evan watched both. I don't know if he watched all of AEW's All Out, but Wrestlepalooza. People weren't really complaining. They were complaining that it was difficult to log in, go through all of that stuff, because it was only thrown together, this pay-per-view, in a month.
It wasn't even available in my area. In my area on Comcast, even with ESPN, even though I'm paying as much as you
For
possibly can
ESPN.
pay, they just simply don't have it available to us here, which really sucked.
Well, neither with DirecTV because they kept advertising, oh yeah, if you have DirecTV, you can get it. But no, it's only if you get DirecTV streaming,
Plus,
not regular satellite DirecTV, which I have, and I'm paying up the ass for ESPN, plus. But so that was difficult. Those kinks will be worked out. But the fact that there was 5-minute commercial blocks after each match, Evan, did you notice that, or did that bother you?
I don't watch any of the WWE promos or commercials. I just watch the wrestling. I don't even watch the entrances. I don't care about any of it. But with that out of the way, I just want to say that I thought this was the best WWE pay-per-view of the year. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was so shocked at how good I thought it was. Usually by the middle of the match, middle of the show, I'm numb, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Cena and Lesnar was insane. I mean, Cena's pushing 50, and Lesnar was pounding the guy. I mean, I was shocked as a quote unquote movie star he would risk getting hurt. I mean, he was really getting tossed around. But it wasn't totally one-sided like the last time they wrestled. So it was
So it
more.
wasn't a squash. It didn't look like
It
a
wasn't a
squash.
squash.
Did Cena
Yeah.
get some offense in?
Yes. So that's why I enjoyed it, and that was followed by the tag team with the Usos and the Vision, and I was never that impressed with Breaker or Bronson Reed, but the last 5 minutes, this thing just took off. I mean, it went from sort of like workmanlike to it really took off at the end. And Uso hits Breaker with the chair, and it bounced back accidentally, and he was totally bloodied, hard way. I mean, it was a bloodbath, and it turned into a really good match, and that was followed by the women's match.
That had to have been off the charts. How great
It
was
was
that?
great. It was
I
the
did hear a lot of positive stuff
best
about
women's
them.
match of the year. So I'm sitting there. Half the show, 3 out of 5 matches are over, and they were all really good. And I'm not used to this. I'm used to sitting there fighting to stay awake, and I'm kind of like, what happened? So then you had the matches with the two spouses, sets of spouses, and I thought it would be absolute crap, but they were very smart the way they did it. It was like CM Punk was doing Ricky Morton. He was getting pounded. So finally, after like the longest time, AJ Lee gets the hot tag, and she comes in, and she's like 87 pounds, but she's cleaning house. And it worked. The thing just worked. And I was shocked.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be awful.
Yeah.
But it was really, really well done. And the last match with McIntyre and Cody, those guys are always top notch. That was very good also. I thoroughly enjoyed this show, and like people on my pages are shocked because I'm always panning WWE. But as a journalist,
Evan, one thing I can say about you, for sure, as a person, is that you've always been fair about what you observe.
No, he's right on. He's honest, and Evan is right on, whether he's criticizing or he's lauding, and he gives praise when it's deserved. And
you've always said everything exactly how you perceive it. You're a master at that.
I'll put an asterisk on that. If it's a mom and pop indie, I don't want to pan it, and then I'll just emphasize the positive. I won't say some 17-year-old kid put on a crap match because there's no desire to make the kid feel bad, But as far as
you've still been honest about what you observe, and for you to say, and you've always said on this program that it isn't whether it's old wrestling or new wrestling. I think, to be honest with you, I think you really watch every match on itself. on its own merits. And you're not like sitting there like, saying, well, the last time these guys got in the ring, it was this. You really like give each match a chance to win you over.
Yeah, like the CM Punk match with McIntyre when they had those 3 bracelet matches. I didn't like the first 2. I thought it was silly, but that third one was killer. That was a great match. So, you have to call it as you see it. Otherwise, what's the point? And the tribalism, look, AEW is far from perfect. AEW is not the NWA from 1985 to 1990. So I watched 3/4 of it yesterday, and you don't need a thumbtack match and a ladders match and another death match. It reaches a point. It's the law of diminishing values. That thumbtack match was wild, though, MJF and Mark Briscoe. But by the time they got to the ladder match late in the show, as good as it was, it's like I'm tired of seeing people going through chairs and falling off of ladders, especially on the same card. So
right. Let me add something very quickly. My next door neighbor, I didn't know, but we're close, and he he's younger, grew up on The Rock in Austin, that period of time, but he loves wrestling, and he flies all over the world, big executive. So out of the blue, I had no idea, since he just spent a month in the French Riviera with his wife and kids. I get this email. I get an email with a bunch of video. He was at the CMLL 72nd or 82nd anniversary show at Arena, Mexico. I knew they were away on vacation again. I didn't know he was in Mexico. And he's sending me video of Hechicero's match and MJF dropping the strap back to Mystico. And then they had to rush from Mexico City to make yesterday's AEW pay-per-view, which started like at noon California time. So probably no sleep at all for MJF, Hechicero, and anyone else on the show. So I was, pretty impressed. And I go, man, that was a hell of a big deal. I would have given my eye teeth to have been at that show, but he was sitting first row, and he sent me.
And you're a dentist, so you don't say that lightly.
Yeah. So Ev, before I have to go, because my throat is crapping out, give me just some quick, or tell us about what you did see in AEW. What did you like? And back to the Wrestlepalooza, though, what match would you say was match of the night for WWE?
The women's match was
that's what I thought.
Match of the night. That was
Stephanie Bakir.
Yeah, 4.5 stars. Great, just great. Probably the best women's match of the whole year. In WWE anyway. Toni Storm's had some great matches in AEW. As far as AEW, it was all very good. There was nothing I would qualify as great. Okada's match, 3 3/4 stars.
What happened? Did he and Takeshita, did they wrestle one-on-one? That should have just been a single match. That would have been a great semi-main. Okada Takeshita by themselves and not involved.
They're building towards it, but the luchador was excellent that they had with them, and
he's been famous for 20 years. I mean, I know he had to sort of play a different character in WWE, but when I've seen and photographed him in Mexico with his little mini Super Estrella, the little guy dressed up just like him, Mascarita, not Mascarita Sagrada, but Dorado. Dorito, Mascarita Dorito, Little Mascara Dorado. He's always been good. He didn't feel like out of place.
No, they were great together. I wouldn't say great. Like I said, 3 3/4 stars. Very good match. Okada's not having 5-star matches too often anymore.
No.
But it was from top. The pre-show was horrible. It's basically squashes, and I just don't get Daniel Garcia. He looks like any guy walking down the street, and he has solid, okay matches. So, he's wrestling Shibata, and am I pronouncing it right?
Shibata. You're close. Shibata,
and Shibata is bigger, stronger, better wrestler. And meanwhile, they're putting over Daniel Garcia. I don't.
Well, he just turned heel. He just turned heel and joined Moxley's faction. which is like got way too many guys in it. And shouldn't the guy have taken, he dropped the strap? Shouldn't he have taken some time off? I mean, people are sort of tired. Same thing, same thing. Moxley kind of dominates these shows with his group, and they need to take like a month off and just give people a breather and come back fresh.
What they need to do is have Moxley and the Bloodline just literally switch feds. Like just one day, wake up, and the Bloodline is over where Moxley is. Moxley's over
well,
in the
you
WWE
almost
now.
did that because Edge paid homage to John Cena as Cena had done to Edge a couple of weeks ago. I don't know, Eb, if you saw that part yet. I don't know if you were the matches. So did you see? I think that opened it. Edge and Christian versus FTR.
It was okay. It was nothing great. I mean, it wasn't Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express.
But what happened with Beth Phoenix, who's now Beth Copeland?
She came out and did the muscle stuff, and it was okay.
They did the shatter machine on her apparently to keep that thing going, and now it looks like Jungle Boy is back as Jungle Boy. How did they explain that transformation from heel back to face?
I don't think they explained anything.
No, they just let time elapse. That's basically how most feds deal with.
So Evan, I know there was the hour pre-show on TNT cable, but was there a separate or elongated 0 hour that's normally 2 hours?
Yeah, it was confusing. They had one show where it was Moxley's wife just talking with somebody else, and then they had a show where they had the actual 4, pre-show matches, and then people were confused because they didn't know where to find it. There's too much wrestling. It's all over the place. It's on 37 channels, and pre-shows and post-shows.
It's confusing. That's the thing. Because AEW, to their credit, they announced that date, and of course Triple H is counter programming, whether it's a Saturday night free main event show or this Wrestlepalooza, counter programming same day. So Tony Khan had to shift and I guess bump his show at least 3 hours earlier, so he's not going to compete. And he wisely, then you get the social media reaction before Wrestlepalooza and WWE do, but it's taxing. I looked at that and I tried getting both shows, and I go, because I have HBO Max, I already get it free because I've got all this shit with DirecTV. I go, I'm just going to watch the original Michael Keaton, the first Batman with Jack Nicholson. And I enjoyed it. I watched all the pre-shows for both WWE and AEW, but I go, I'll watch these things later. But it was just too frustrating. I went through all these steps, like almost everybody, including Busted Open Radio hosts, Jonathan Hood and the other guy. It took them like a half hour to log in to even, so they started in on the pay-per-view late. I'm assuming that happened to many thousands of people, at least for the ESPN app on top of an app. Russ, so I don't even know if you looked at that, how you would have watched Wrestlepalooza, but I think you did. You did try, and it's like you have to already have ESPN Plus and be paying for ESPN, whether on DirecTV or one of the few cable systems, and then you got to pay for this secondary ESPN.
Yeah, welcome to the future.
I don't like it. It's so scattered, and then I'm going to let you guys have the show, and I'll sign off. Is WWE? You have to pay for everything now. You have to pay Monday for Netflix, Friday SmackDown, or you have to have cable until that moves. The pay-per-views, you have to, just the pay-per-views themselves. Now you have to pay for ESPN, and you have to pay for Peacock until they yank all of the historic programming away from that. I don't even know what I'm leaving out, but it's like a different channel every night. You're confusing your audience and your consumer. And
AEW's pay-per-views went down $10. You could get it for $39.99 now on Max. I guess that's a positive. I think it should go down to $20 or $30. They're doing that in boxing now. Inexpensive pay-per-views
until the next Mike Tyson one.
Yeah, but
the Canelo Alvarez thing drew a record number, like 69 million. But it was I don't know, Ev, what did you think of the Canelo fight? He looked tired. It wasn't even a good fight.
It was exciting because because Crawford was the underdog and he won, but Crawford was dominating, so it wasn't a great fight. But the card itself was good. I mean, everybody's always
Yeah,
knocking.
the undercard was good. I can't wait to see, sometimes a little critical of Sydney Sweeney, but man, she has transformed herself for her Christy Martin movie, a la Rock. I can't wait to see both those movies, The Rock and Smashing Machine, because I actually knew Mark Kerr, because Rick Bassman, who used to Russell, remember, he used to did a faux battle of his UPW, Southern California, Orange County promotion.
APW, that invasion.
But he had his wrestling and MMA school, and Mark Kerr, who's the subject who, died, who had drug problems and other problems, but was an MMA superstar, along with his friend Mark Coleman. But Mark Kerr, I was there. Every time they came in, Bassman said they're going to come in. You come and photograph them learning how to pro wrestle for New Japan from MMA. They came from the UFC world. And so that is who Rock is playing, is Mark Kerr, who I knew very well. But, he has to, he was on the biggest, longest segment of CBS Sunday Morning today, and they went through his wrestling stuff, and they showed photos, from the 60s and 70s of his mom, Ada, who was Peter Maivia's daughter, who I know well to this day. And so it's impressive, too, that he has to go through 3 hours of makeup and prosthetics, especially to cover all his tattoos, because Mark Kerr really only had, a couple of very tiny ones, and they weren't the ones that Rock has. So both those movies look incredible. I want to see women's boxing come back in more than just Clarissa Shields. There's like a few superstars here and there, but
well, now they have to compete against women's MMA. I mean, that's becoming equally popular. So
they don't really, the top, since Ronda and Holly Holm retired and Amanda Nunes is kind of done. The women seem to have a shorter shelf life. I mean, they had their peak crescendo with Ronda Rousey, and
a lot of times they want to have kids, and that is a thing that makes it a lot tougher.
Maybe we could help.
What?
Maybe we could help.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
We can at least see, I'd love to have more women MMA folks on the show, and of course,
Yeah, I mean, the women are exciting. Ronda Rousey was way more exciting to me, putting people away with that armbar, than Conor McGregor, bad boy with all that stuff. But even the men in Ultimate Fight, I covered that from day one with the Hoist Gracie stuff going on in like 92, 93, Kenny Shamrock, Dan Severn, Oleg Taktarov, Chemo, Tank Abbott, and the rest of them. But now there's a lull in the male fighter. Both the women and the male they don't have any superstars. They're putting on nearly every weekend on their, I guess it's ESPN app, but it's going to go to Paramount, CBS, which is insane, Skydance, that whole conglomeration. They need to make some stars.
Well, any of the MMA guys that have any charisma wind up going to the WWE or AEW. The ones that have no charisma stay in Ultimate Fighting. But if you've got enough to really sell yourself, you wind up being a pro wrestler, because you're going to have a longer career, and you're going to probably make more money depending on where you go.
I don't really think there's been, other than Shayna Baszler, she was the last MMA type fighter. There's really not an influx, because what they're doing with their future legends and greats and all that stuff, they're getting people like from tennis, obviously track and field, which is where Bianca Belair came from all these different disciplines, like some cheerleaders and other athletics. So they're not going after people from MMA nor the indies, by and large. A few come in, but not that many. And so some of these folks are all milk toast. I don't know. Are you guys, before I leave, are you guys watching the Sunday A&E Future Legends and Greats thing, where that's before they even go to NXT, and whoever wins that, male and female, they both get NXT contracts. So they're really green.
I don't even watch NXT or Raw or SmackDown.
And hey, I'm at these shows. It's hard to watch wrestling when you're actually at performing yourself. So
We
yeah,
had an indie show yesterday in the area, and I think having two major pay-per-views the same day hurt it because the attendance wasn't great. I think some people go, well, I could save a lot of money just sitting home watching, AEW or WWE. So,
No, I say the reverse. Go support your indies.
oh, of course, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying the
And I know
crowd,
you feel the
it's the
same way.
reality.
crowd was
Yeah.
Yeah,
smaller
the
than
reality, people stayed at home because, gee, that's too much. What would be the total hours? Like, isn't that like 11 hours between the two companies yesterday of watching wrestling in the pre-shows?
WWE was like 3.5 hours, and AEW is usually between the pre-show and the regular show. It's almost 6 hours
I
usually.
think it's more than that. I think that if you watch the 2 hour pre-show and 5 hour
I
regular,
don't watch any of those pre-shows. I could care less.
I know, it gets
sometimes you
ridiculous.
get little tidbits of stuff, and so
But
I'll
usually it's
Michael
just
feels like a
squash
pounding in my
matches.
head.
Yeah, usually it's just squash matches and hype over the
no,
matches
they
you're gonna
had the
watch
women's
later.
thing. I like the women's insane 8 women tag thing that closed the AEW pre-show.
WWE has no pre-show matches. They just talk for hours.
Yeah, and then nobody wants to see that stuff. I just fast forward through that crap. But they did have a ton on Friday of ESPN coverage, and then they encapsulated that into a 1 hour ESPN regular Wrestlepalooza special. All of their guys, Usos and et cetera, Drew McIntyre on all these different ESPN shows. And they didn't have Stephen A. Smith, who I'll leave it at that. If this guy thinks he knows wrestling, he picked as #1 wrestler of all time in all of wrestling, not Lou Thez, not Carl Gotch, not Bruno Sammartino, but Goldberg over guys like Flair and Shawn Michaels, people that could actually work. So
That's terrible.
that should be a stain on Stephen A. Smith, who otherwise is like.
But he did say Joe Turco was his second favorite wrestler.
Right.
Joe Turco?
Yes.
Yeah. That was his second.
Well, if he'd have said Johnny Rodz, I'd have more respect for him. But
Yeah.
all right, guys, good night.
All right. Well, it's good to see you this week. We'll see you next
And
week.
try to promote. Let's at least promote Vinny Berry. He's got a new book. Go to his. He's the guy that did the Lance
we'll
Von
try to have him on. He didn't make it this week, so he'll have to be on here himself to promote himself and his other stuff. So hopefully we can have him on again soon. But thanks for being on tonight.
All right, brothers. Have a great show.
All right.
So I had an interesting day today. I had a business meeting with my friend Carlton J. Smith, who's a world-class R&B singer, literally world-class. He's playing in Abu Dhabi New Year's Eve.
Wow.
He's done residencies in China, Turkey, all over the world. And he does a lot of original material and just a great live performer. And I'm going to be booking him into motivational speaking and music institutions and organizations and things of that nature. Tremendous performer and very inspiring. He grew up in Spanish Harlem. He was weaned at the Apollo. He would go every weekend to the Apollo like I would go to wrestling, and he saw everybody, James Brown, Joe Tex, Joe Simon, all the old school guys. And and basically it molded him into the performer he is today. And from there, I went to see a film called Brownsville Bred. And my dear friend Edwin Vasquez, who did the Cape Man soundtrack on Broadway with Paul Simon, Mark Anthony, Ruben Blades. How's that for upper?
Yeah, that's pretty, like the who's who of their respective instruments.
So he's in the movie, and his music is featured in the movie Brownsville Bred, which is based on a true story. Elaine Del Valle did an off-Broadway play and a book about her childhood in Brooklyn, much like I did with my two books. And I really related to this film, growing up in a tough neighborhood in Brooklyn. Hers is in the 80s. Mine was in the 70s more so. But, really, I'm sitting there and the audience spontaneously burst into applause during the movie. That's how moved they were by this. And there's a scene in the movie. It's a young girl and her father's a mess. He's got addiction problems and money problems, and the police are knocking at the door. And this little girl's trying to figure it all out because she adores her father, but the guy's got issues. And there's a scene where he sings to her, and it's so poignant. And the camera just does close-ups of their reacting to it, both of them. And it's my friend Edwin's music, and it's just beautiful.
Wow.
I'm hoping, it's an indie show, an indie movie, done on a small budget, and I just hope it breaks out. I mean, it was playing in a legitimate theater in Manhattan, that's even tough today to get a theater for a week if you're a small indie film. So that in and of itself says something, and it's I did a review for it. It's on my Facebook page, and just a beautiful film, very powerful, and it reminded me of when we did The Wrestler, and all of a sudden Randy the Ram says to his daughter, "I'm just a broken down piece of meat," and everybody in the audience is crying. I'm looking around me, and like everybody's crying during this movie. It's really a powerful, and it's a true story.
I did.
Yeah. No, I'm saying this movie also, Brownsville Bred. I made the jump to The Wrestler because it's not often you sit in a theater, a packed theater, and everybody's crying. So it was very moving, the whole thing, and it took. Basically it was a 20-year journey to get this project to the screen, So, these indie artists, they really sacrifice and work hard, and it's a shame that a lot of them, it never really breaks through. There's a lot of films out there, but you do.
I mean, we had our friend Colin, and the ref didn't see it, and I've been telling all the refs that I work with in all the indie feds that I've gone to that they've got to watch that movie. So it's doubly difficult because wrestling has a stigma to it where people who are not wrestling fans just think it's silly or stupid or whatnot, and that's a big part of that is the WWE's fault, the way they generally present it. But the ref didn't see it as a quality film, and it's from the heart, and it's really about a subculture, a community, a surrogate family, the indies, and it entertains without insulting you, and that's one thing that I'm finding when I'm watching a lot of mainstream movies and TV. There's a certain level of like, wow, I'm insulted by what you think I'm entertained by, that whatever you're presenting to me. And you know what? It sounds to me, I need to watch Wrestlepalooza because it sounds to me like for once there was a decently booked show that understood the momentum from match to match, and it sounded like the matches flowed together in a decent card format.
Every match I gave 3.5 to 4.5 stars. Every match on the card.
And then it built up to a main event.
The best match was the women's match, and that was in the middle.
But I don't think that they thought that would wind up being the best match when they booked it. I think that's what everyone's perception was. But I think they thought the Cody Rhodes match was going to be, the best match of the card. And at least you lead up to a world title. It was an excellent match, Cody. I like Cody. I like McIntyre. I like a lot of WWE wrestlers. Why this card was excellent was they didn't have the factions, they didn't have the run-ins, they didn't have the screw job finishes. They let great wrestlers wrestle. And here's the irony of it. This is where we are in pro wrestling today, and I'm throwing this out there. Nobody else has said this.
a lot of the WWE fans didn't like this card because it didn't have all the stupidity. It didn't have the run-ins. It didn't have the screw job finishes. It didn't have all the nonsense. So they didn't like it. People are going, this was the worst card of the year. I'm going, this was the best WWE card of the year. So I'm coming from a whole different place. I want to see great wrestlers have great wrestling matches. And 2 of the 5 matches were great, and 3 were very good.
Yeah,
So
you liked it. We haven't really talked about the Lesnar Cena match.
I enjoyed it because it wasn't a one-sided squash, and there was some doubt, Everybody was like, Cena's gonna lose, and I'm like, well, it's his next to last match, and he is making a comeback, so I wasn't 100% sure, so I enjoyed it. It was back and forth. I mean, Lesnar dominated, but it was still back and forth. It wasn't that match years ago. Lesnar just came out and basically squashed them, which was shocking at the time.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. I like Lesnar. I mean, not personally. I'm not pro hunting, shooting animals and all of this, but and other things. I'm not.
No, but it also has shown that the WWE made the right move in these last couple months to turn Cena back to being a face.
Yeah, that whole thing was silly.
He's
a heel, and he's coming out, and the fans are cheering him anyway, and it just felt off, the whole thing.
I did. I agree with you. I thought that was really I mean, I don't even know what they were thinking when a guy's retiring to then, that you want, to the fans to be, in favor of. If a guy's a heel and he's retiring, the fan reaction is, go ahead and retire then. We don't want to see you. So why do that? Go out as a face, and obviously that's what he's doing now, and it's allowing him to have some better matches that I think the fans are more comfortable with. But
the thing with Lesnar, he's legitimately scary. This guy comes out, he's 330 pounds. I'm like, this is the last guy on planet Earth I'd ever want to get angry at me, And
it also because those sexual assault charges with him and Vince McMahon have just sort of disappeared, into the
I don't think it
nether
was
sphere.
an assault charge. I think it was a different charge.
Well, whatever.
There was no assault.
That lady did file a bunch of things against,
I'm saying technically, you're the lawyer, but I don't know if technically it was an assault charge, is what I'm saying.
They were serious,
I'm saying on Lesnar's end, Vince is a whole different.
Right, but all of those things seem to have just completely disappeared into the nether sphere, and whatever's gonna probably, just like in the Vince documentary, she's just gonna become another one of those slides that says Vince McMahon settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of money. The guy has $8 billion. I mean, why he just doesn't just make that go away? And I'm sure he will. But it obviously Lesnar has a new lease on life, and somehow all of that stuff that he was implicated in has just disappeared, and he's fans don't really seem to care, and he's back to being a semi-main eventer. Probably won't ever put the title back on him, but he'll be there as a figure of menace to throw out on the pay-per-views, probably for another 5 or 10 years till that he starts looking like the Undertaker. But
speaking of McMahon's, the one thing I didn't like in the pay-per-view, there's Triple H and Stephanie. They're always in front of the camera. They're putting Stephanie in the Hall of Fame. There's all these great wrestlers who are never in the Hall of Fame. The nepotism, the cronyism, and I don't like nepo babies and corporate vultures. How many great wrestlers, husband and wife teams with kids who relocated for an opportunity, let go, future endeavored during record-breaking profitable years. This is who they're honoring in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't like these corporate vultures, and I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan.
Yeah, well, I agree with the fact that whenever there's people future endeavored, and let go, you never see a guy like Shawn Michaels get paid less for one of his matches, or the
Stephanie's
Undertaker
got a
get paid less.
show. She's got a show like nobody else is capable. Come on.
Yeah, Triple H never gets his salary reduced or anything like that. I mean, the higher ups are always getting rewarded. And then, we get that announcement from TKO. I'll continue to harp on it, that says that, the WWE is too affordable for families and that they have to charge more, and we layer that on top of what, Mike was saying, that you can't even see the ESPN pay-per-view stuff or the premiere event, whatever you want to call it, stuff, the Wrestlepalooza, even though you're paying for ESPN, because you have to have it in as a streaming app that isn't even available to like a third of the audience right now. And the reason why it's not available to that third of the audience is that they're trying to figure out a way to charge us extra for all of that stuff. Not because it's technically not possible. It's because they don't want to let it out of their freaking greedy mitts until they can make sure that those of us who are on Comcast Xfinity to pay extra for it every month.
And ironically, this one was actually worth seeing. It's too bad.
I know, and that's the whole problem, is that stuff gets thrown out with the bathwater. Although, I'm not going to get myself in legal trouble, but I'd say that there are other ways to see it, on the internet. Once it gets broadcasted, there's really no way that they can keep that genie in the bottle. The WWE can just stick that, and say, because there are people then recording it and then rebroadcasting it all over the internet. And I'm not trying to get myself.
By that point, you've heard half the results. It's not as entertaining.
No, it's true. All of that's true. But over the years, I've gotten used to it because, in the case of Wrestlepalooza, there wasn't any way that I could watch it, no matter what I wanted. I mean, unless I went over to a bar or something and told them to turn it on, if they had. But most people around here are on Xfinity. So we're all Xfinity has a near monopoly in my area and here in the San Francisco Bay Area. So there's not a lot of other companies that compete with it. So we're all locked out. We all have to hear about it secondhand, and that's just the way it is until they find a way to charge us more for it. And it's very frustrating. And as I said, I think we're going to get to a point where, somebody makes a tag and then the big thing comes on the screen and says, if you want to see what happens with the rest of this match, you need to subscribe to another channel. During the match, they'll make you change channels to watch another channel to see the finish.
I'll tell you, I'm at a point I could just cut almost everything out and just stick to the Criterion channel, which is the greatest films of all time. Also, Mubi is the greatest films of all time, but World Cinema, those two channels, you could watch great movies 24/7. I mean, I could live without much of what WWE and AEW puts out. I mean, I still love wrestling. I would miss it, but I'm not going to pay a fortune of money just to watch wrestling.
And you don't have to miss it. I found myself wandering over on YouTube to things like, the International Wrestling Grand Prix stuff from the 70s. Hey, I've watched more Edward Carpentier matches now.
Yeah,
than I've ever seen.
Great.
I never saw him wrestle. He was, it was the early 70s, and I was, 2-3 years old. So, But as time moves on, people are converting their own home video stuff that Vince McMahon and not Vince McMahon, but TKO doesn't have any, control over anymore. They don't have the rights to this stuff. So as it gets converted into video and put on YouTube, I'm finding it fascinating to watch this stuff that, some of it is like local from New Hampshire and like local broadcasts from New Hampshire and like Manitoba and some really far out places and some England and so forth. So it's to me that kind of retro stuff is more entertaining to me. If I'm gonna watch stuff, I mean, to watch guys get into the ring without any themes, without any pyro, without even a jumbotron, for them, instant replay was a big effect, and slow motion was a big deal when they can even, muster that up. And single camera studio wrestling, there's something lovable about that sort of stuff in its retroness. And the other thing too is, I've got to tell you, man, I really feel that indie wrestling is back to a level at which it was in the early 2000s. I think that I mean, it's never going to take over, the WWE or AEW or anything like that, but the interest and people coming out, and I know you said there were a couple of shows that came out that people weren't really there for, but what I've seen here in the Bay Area is a lot of new feds are popping up, and they're getting 400 to 500 people to show up. And as I told you, last night was Friday was at a fair. It was in the middle of downtown Santa Rosa, so we were right there, right next to like the city downtown block with a ring in there, and we had easily 1,000 people standing around watching us do it. Now it was free, obviously, so that changes things. It's not as much as a paid show. We were paid by the Visual Arts Foundation of Santa Rosa. And I mean, we did generate money, and people donated, and that kind of thing to the Santa Rosa Visual Arts Foundation, so they got something for our performance. But I mean, the kids were really nuts about us, and especially Chicano Flame getting in the ring. He is. We've had him on the show. I don't know if you were on the show with Flame. He is a local treasure. Let me just say this. Hope it gets back to him. I'm gonna mention him in the link. He's just such a nice guy, and kids just love him. And let me get back to this, because when TKO says we don't want families as part of our demographic, we're going to try to price families out. Fuck you, TKO. Families are what make wrestling fun, okay? Kids are what make wrestling fun. I don't want to ever perform to an audience that doesn't have kids as part of it. And I think I speak for a lot of wrestlers. When we see the connection with the kids, when we see the young kids in the audience really enjoying and getting into what we're giving to them, that connects with me in a much greater way than I would a bunch of rich, overprivileged, super wealthy snobs that buy up 2 or 3 rows so they can stretch out and, have the 2 or 3 friends that they have each get a row in the audience. The kids are what really make wrestling fun. And I think the WWE is really on the verge of forgetting that. It's going to be like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, when he, at the end, where he takes all the kids out of Hamelin. And Hamelin's just a town of just old people and adults. And there's no fun. They realize that the fun and the joy has come out of their lives because kids aren't a part of it anymore. I think the WWE, when kids are not a part of it anymore, because parents can't afford to take them and they've been priced out intentionally by TKO, wrestling will really suffer. But not that the WWE. Whoever figures out, you know what, we got to keep kids in it, and we got to make kids give something that kids can enjoy. You know, adults and kids can enjoy, and we want to bring in everybody. We want wrestling to be inclusive, so it's something that everybody in the audience, no matter if you're rich or you're poor, if you're young or you're old, if you're black or you're white, or you're Mexican or you're Asian or whoever.
This is like Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream speech.
It is, because I really enjoyed myself at the show. And I entertained a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I reached a lot of kids that they hated my character, but they really enjoyed themselves. What is wrong with that? Why does everything have to be how much money I made? Why can't TKO just say to themselves, we entertain millions of people every year. The money is great, and nobody ever says TKO has to go broke doing friggin' shows. But do they have to go right up to our face and treat us like a sponge and wring everything out and just say, that's the only thing we get out of this, is knowing that you're broke going to our matches? You've spent everything that you have to go be entertained? Can't you just say, we made a fair amount of money and we're making a fair profit, but we also care about how entertained you and your family and the next generation of wrestling fans are getting? They don't have that. They don't have that within them. And I'm telling you, they're missing so much of what the indie scene brings to fans right now. And I think that is why indies may, start getting a greater share of viewers and, people, being excited about what they get at an indie show than what they're getting at the WWE and AEW. And now I'm off my soapbox.
So if you want something wrestling related that's cheap, I'm selling autographed Legends pictures for $15 each. You send for my list, contact me at Facebook, whatever. I'm not hard to find. And I got tons and tons of Legends and $15 each. So I've always operated like that. Back in the day, my buddy Lucha Mike, who's also gone now, all my friends are dead. Lucha Mike would go down to Mexico and he'd pick up masks. He'd make a little profit. I'd make a little profit. I'd sell Mexican wrestling masks. It was never about bleeding people for every dollar. It's like you make a few bucks, you have fun, you hang out, you watch a wrestling.
You have fun. Yeah. That's what TKO wants to take out of the equation, is the fun part of it, where they care that people are having fun. Right now, TKO cares about making as much money as possible.
As quickly as possible. They have a big debt coming up in 2 years or whatnot.
Yeah, but you know what? You took that on knowing that you would. And that's not our fault as wrestling fans, and you can't look at us as, just like, a giant ham hock that you're just going to carve up and just say, there's nothing, that we don't get anything back for this, that you're just expecting everyone to accept the higher prices without giving them something that's extraordinary, or in a lot of ways is something that even is passable for entertainment.
This Thursday, I'm going to see Patti LaBelle, Shaka Khan, Stephanie Mills, and Gladys Knight. Tickets are $115. To me, okay, that's like $30 each to see these legends.
Exactly.
Two of them, they're in their 80s, and it's probably my last chance to see them, and I have no problem with that. That's it's not cheap, but it's not $70,000 for WrestleMania. It's
no. And just this attitude that just whatever we charge, people are going to pay for it. When people take that attitude towards me, I get insulted. When somebody says that you'll just pay whatever we tell you to pay, it's like, no, I'd like to have some say in what I think is my limit on something that's depending on the quality that I get.
My buddy was telling me just today, I had breakfast with him, and he says, my daughter graduated college. She asked me to get her for a present $1,000 Beyonce ticket. And he said to her, I'm going to do this. It's a once in a lifetime thing. You're graduating college, but I'm telling you, nobody's worth $1,000, for a 2-hour show, no matter how good they are. And she's great. It's to me, it's ridiculous. And I mean, you will never see the day I spend $1,000 to see a concert, a wrestling match, a boxing match, a sports event. Never. Out of principle, I'll spend $1,000 on a plane ticket.
Right. Right.
I'm not going to my pocket pick. Just last week, I saw Charlie Wilson from the Gap Band, El DeBarge, Babyface, KC from Jodeci, $30. Great show. Great.
Well, you are fortunate you live in New York. I mean, for a lot of people,
it's going everywhere. Uncle Charlie's R&B barbecue or whatever it's called. It's going all over the country. It's an arena tour, but I got tickets for $30. I mean, I'm not spending $1,000 to see any show. It's ridiculous. No,
but that is one of the beauties of being in New York, is that people, are always passing through. Yeah, and because there's so many things going on, the competition for the entertainment dollar is much higher, so people are willing to sell things for less.
Well, the artists have gotten smarter. It's much like WWE. I went to the concert, and the merchandise stand, there's the $45 T-shirt, the $75 hoodie, all the gimmicks. Nothing's cheap. That's where they're making their money, more so than a $30 ticket. And
to me, that's fine.
Let me say this. I was having this conversation with my friend who's a musician. More and more of these shows, and these are big-time venues, the acts are coming without a band. They're singing to tracks, some of them. To me, that's a ripoff. I'm sorry. I mean, I saw 4 acts, and 2 of them had tracks behind them. The other 2 had full bands with them, but to me, that's not acceptable, especially if it's a headliner.
Cheap. Yeah, it is definitely cheap. They don't pay the band. They just pay the band one time to perform, and then they just record it and, play them over and over again. It makes it a lot cheaper. I agree. I mean, there should be, especially in New York, local musicians that are available, even if you don't want to travel with a band. A place like New York City, you should be able to easily find local musicians who can play.
I saw Bobby Rush, who's 91 years old. He did a show recently in New York. It was just him and a guitarist, and he plays blues harp, and it worked, but that's not playing to a backing track, it's
right. No, it's a completely different experience. Absolutely. I saw Ian Anderson just play flute, and he had a violinist with him, a Spanish violinist who was absolutely.
I saw him a few years ago. I was blown away. It's funny. I grew up in a black neighborhood. I was weaned on R&B, jazz, and blues more so than rock. But as I've gotten older, I've discovered a lot of these rock acts. I have a major venue walking distance from me, Forest Hill Stadium in Queens, New York. And over the years, I've gone to see Morrissey and Ian Anderson and Willie Nelson.
They're all in the book. They're all in the book.
Yeah, read my book.
You talk about most of these in your book.
Read my book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets. Support indie publishing too. So, but seriously, it's funny. Lynyrd Skynyrd. Like, I never imagined I would like Lynyrd Skynyrd. And these guys were jamming, boy. It's like these guys are virtuoso musicians. So, great music is great music.
It's funny too, because one of the worst concerts I've been to, by the way, was when I saw Leonard Skinner. But I saw them at the end of a tour in Sacramento when it was like 98 degrees in the Cal Expo, and they were just worn out. I mean, that's, it's different when you catch somebody at the beginning of a tour or if you catch somebody at the very end of a tour, and their energy level was just really just blah.
I've seen older musicians literally pass out on stage or carried off of stages. Because if it's 100 degrees, if it's 95 degrees and humid on that stage with the lights, it's 120 degrees. These guys are in their 70s or even 80s. And I've seen it a few times, boy. The Spinners, two of the Spinners got sick on stage one hot day outdoors. Herb from Peaches and Herb, this guy, they practically had to carry him off the stage. You forget how old some of these guys are. Some of these guys had hits in the late 50s, early 60s. Even in the 70s, these guys are ancient already. The guys who had hits.
Yeah, no, they're all hitting their 80s, as you pointed out. When you're going to go see Patti LaBelle and so forth, it's probably going to be one of her last performances. I mean, not wishing her, ill, but it's just
Gladys
how much.
Knight and Patti LaBelle are in their 80s. Stephanie Mills is in her 60s, and Shaka Khan, I think, is early 70s, or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
So see
they're
them when
not
you
kids.
can.
They've been out there a long time.
But meanwhile, the other way around, go see the indies stuff because you'll see them when they are kids, and you'll see them as they develop. Again, I'm so proud of Ava. She's just really amazing. Ava Brooks. I got to tell you, she's a child prodigy. I mean, she's 19, so she's not a child. She feels like it when you're 58. You see someone that's 19, they do seem like really young kids. But I tell people that are watching this to go watch the show that she was already on, and we are going to have her back on again because she's going to reappear back in Northern California. I want to promote her next appearance when she comes out. But she's just somebody that gets it, and when you see someone in wrestling that gets it, you really hope the best for them because wrestling needs more people in it that get it, that understand what they are to the fans, what they understand, what the fans mean to them, what they understand how to perform. They're willing to try different stuff. And for 19 years old to fly across the country out of nowhere, and you're basically putting your hands in your life in the hands of strangers. I think that takes a lot of guts. I would have never been at 19 years old willing or capable of flying across the country and appearing in another wrestling show. I'm amazed at that, and I'm proud of that, and I think she's really going to be going places. So I'll always be able to say one of her first interviews on any show anywhere was our show, and that's going to be a big source of pride for me. So anyway, we've hit the hour mark. I always have more than I can add. We'll have to get Vincent back on, sometime soon, and it's unfortunately wasn't here tonight, but we always have stuff to discuss, so I really appreciate that. And so we'll catch everyone next week, and it's good to have you on the show, and Mike too, and we'll see everyone next week. So good night, everyone. And that's the show.